Two balls and a strike to count on Taylor. Reyes fires, swinging a drive, deep left field. This is way back. Welcome on. Let's Taylor.
Hi, everyone, and welcome into another DodgerHeads Postgame live show. My name is Matthew Moreno, and joining me tonight is Scott Geirman. It was a rough game. I know the Dodgers just got done playing the series opener against the Phillies. Scott, not a whole lot of positives to take from it.
Just a rough watch, kind of an ice bath. Just dunk in and take a look at it and see what the Phillies can do, how deep their lineup is, and how they punish struggling pitchers. And it was not pretty for Bobby Miller. And I said, I've had this conversation a couple times about Bobby Miller, that I'm going to give him a little bit of run. But today was, in a nutshell, for me, nothing improved from the last start. Everything was, a lack of command. His mix just looked ridiculous, just relying on his fastball. And when he was going secondary stuff, he was missing it hard of the plate. So just a ton to dissect, a lot to talk about, and not a lot to not like. And chat, bring it on tonight. I see a lot of work cooked. We'll break it down. I know I heard on the radio broadcast, that days like this will happen. But it's also looking at a team like the Phillies and how deep their lineup is from top to bottom. It poses a lot of problems when analyzing the Dodgers roster.
Yeah, Matty Man 5 Dodge says, put your armor on, Scott and Matt. Look, we're ready for a lot of frustration, and it honestly, the conversation Scott and I might have with you guys may be a little bit surprising. We're not fully against some of the concern and maybe looking at some of the roster issues that this team has. So thank you, Matty Man 5, for being in here. I also see Bob Nightingale's in here early tonight. He says Friedman is going to have to pull a Houdini trick like he did with Scherzer and Turner. Hold that thought on Max Scherzer. Scott might have an idea for you down the line.
Oh,
but
goodness.
Again, we want to thank everybody who's joining us tonight. Our plan, like Scott said, we're going to certainly dive into Bobby Miller's struggles. Tyler Glasnow also went on the injured list. There is some good news regarding Clayton Kershaw, so that's encouraging. And then, of course, we'll have time for some questions at the end. But, a reminder, if you do want us, if there's a specific topic or question you want us to ask, then Super Chat is definitely the way to go. We'll stop whatever we're doing. We'll get to that as quickly as possible. I see we do already have one, so just give me a second. I think it was from 300 GJW. Yeah, it is. We'll get to you real quick. Let me just run through our intro stuff, if you don't mind. If you're a YouTube viewer, please also be sure to hit the like button on this specific video, subscribe to the YouTube channel, ring the notification bell, all that good stuff. If you're not on YouTube right now, maybe come by later on. Once we're done, do all that, subscribe, ring the notification bell to make sure you don't miss out on any interviews, any of our daily content that we're putting up. And we're also available wherever you get your podcasts. So big thank you to our audio listeners as well. You can subscribe, rate, and review us there. And one final thing before we get into tonight's show, Scott, I want to make sure everybody knows about our sponsor, So Rare. You've heard us talking about them in the past. I'm going to play a quick video for you that breaks down some of the exciting stuff they have for the month of July.
It's heating up this July on So Rare MLB, where the thrill of the chase meets the prospect of big rewards. Lock in and go yard, collecting cards and playing your way to the top. Get things right and you'll be calling your shot at a share of over $225K in total cash prizes and more. Join for free. Build your winning roster, watch your players perform, and improve your strategy each week for a shot at being crowned a champion. Sign up and enter now. July is for baseball.
Yeah, so as you heard, So Rare is giving up over $225,000 in total cash prizes for the month of July. They're also going to be implementing some fun All-Star Game specific competitions where you can compete against some of the best that there is. So keep an eye out for that. Best of all, creating an account is free, and we have our staff is on there playing. The link to sign up is in the description of this video. If you're listening via podcast, it's in the episode notes. You could find it there. Look, there's a July chase where a first place winner can take home up to $15,000. So definitely don't miss your chance to get in on all of that fun. All right. So we have our plan, Scott, but we do have this super chat 300 GJW. You've been in here a lot. We appreciate you. Thank you for being patient. It says at one point, the Dodgers batted 5 guys in a row who were hitting under 210, 4 of which are under 200. make a trade, ... in all caps now. Yeah. So trade deadline is in 3 weeks from today. It is July 30th that afternoon. I think it's 2 p.m. Pacific, if I remember correctly. I'd have to double check that. Scott, 300 GJW wants a trade. I know the bench has been an area of concern for multiple weeks now. Obviously,
Long time.
losing Max Muncy, I think, is what sort of started it. Now Mookie Betts is out as well. Is there a position player trade that you see the Dodgers being able to make right now or in the next 10 days or so?
Pinpointing one, 300. Thanks for the super chat, man. Appreciate you a ton. Everybody, I see everyone going off in chat. You got to remember, I'm going to align with a lot of you and a lot of the concern there. Matt and I are going to do the exact same thing. We'll get real with the roster. We understand what's going on. We're going to break it down. Not every move can be a tidal wave. It's not going to all happen at one time. But 300, I agree with you. This is the same thing I said at the top of the show. You look at the Phillies lineup, aside from the guys at the top, you go down past and operating under the assumption that the Dodgers are playing down Max Muncy, down Mookie Betts, and you're running guys out, James Outman, Andy Pages, Miguel Rojas, Gavin Lux, who is 0 for his last 18, I think I just saw. It's a very uncomfortable place to be. And there will not be one trade that can fix that bottom of the lineup. And I see a lot of people saying DFA guys at the bottom, and maybe there has to be some moves there. There has to be some things because against the Phillies, it's the same thing I talked about with your barometer against good teams. And when pitching's not there, your offense has to step up. And you saw how bad it was. James Outman, I think, had 3 strikeouts tonight. Game changes when you're down by so many runs. But when you look towards the bottom half of the lineup, not doing anything besides Kevin Biggio, who's, we want a DFA twice on, every day, twice on Sunday. It's a rough spot to be. So, I see another super chat here. It's a preview of what the playoffs, Luis, thanks for that one. I think that looking ahead for right now, that's why we have to see the deadline. It's a very pivotal deadline. And the same reason why I keep talking about how weak the league is overall. And you can only measure yourself against these best teams, these top teams, division leaders. When your bottom of the order gets exposed like this, and it just makes your stars have to perform higher. When they're not doing it, everything's under a microscope. And tonight was just worst case scenario. Starting pitching puts you way behind it. Entire offensive mentality changes, and it looks way worse than it actually was. But it's still the same thing. There has to be improvements at the bottom.
Yeah, definitely. And to your point about stars needing to perform, again, not to certainly make any sort of excuse, but the Dodgers do have 2 stars that aren't available right now. I mean, even more if you want, like Yoshinobu Yamamoto. And that's, I know that, Bobby Miller started tonight, so it's not like Yamamoto would have made any impact anyway if he was healthy. Unless tonight's game would have been his turn in the rotation, just if how the schedule lined up that way. But, again, Max Muncy and Mookie Betts both being out of the lineup, I don't think can be overstated. I know Muncy has had some struggles at the plate, some big strikeout numbers and all that, but he still was certainly providing a bunch of value and production. But hey, thanks for those early super chats, guys. We're going to get into our plans show now. But again, if you have a topic or a question you want us to address right away, super chat's the way to go. Definitely helps us. It supports the show, helps us grow. We appreciate all of that. Like I said in the intro, there wasn't a lot of good tonight. And so we could the majority of it centers around Bobby Miller. And you, Scott, you said, you're going to give him a little bit of an opportunity, a little bit of a runway since coming off the injury list. Real quick, just to summarize Bobby Miller's night against the Phillies. He retired the first 2 batters faced in the I think it was the second or third inning. 2 quick outs, things are looking well, but then there was a walk and then a stolen base, and that was immediately cashed in on an RBI single, and then another base hit and a wild pitch allowed runners to advance. Then Kyle Schwarber's single put the Phillies up 3-0 before Miller could get through the inning. Then in the third, he did manage to strand a couple runners on. But then things started to really turn for him shortly after that. A leadoff single, a double, put 2 more in scoring position in the 4th inning. RBI single, a walk low to the bases. First pitch slider to Trey Turner, just sort of, their cement mixer just kind of hung up there, fluttered over the middle of the zone.
Yep.
Trey put a good, I guess it's hard for me to gauge home runs at Citizens Bank Park. I feel like sometimes you could tell they're really crushed, whereas Trey's, I thought, had a little bit of air. I wasn't sure if it was going to carry, but it
low liner,
little bit, grand slam anyway. And then Miller gave up a second home run to Bryson Stott So his final line was 9 runs allowed on 10 hits. He also walked 3 guys, finished with just 2 strikeouts. Scott, before we sort of expand on this and what we've seen from him since coming off the IL, what do you think of Miller's just performance tonight against, like you said, a talented Phillies lineup that, this team, they have the best record in baseball right now. So this is everybody was touting this matchup as a potential NLCS preview.
Yeah. It's definitely, your question was just, what do we see from him? It was tough gauging. It's a tough matchup, especially essentially what Bobby Miller, even probably the Dodgers, even viewed as just another spring training start for Bobby Miller, even to his own admission. I'm going to hang on that. If that's what he's saying, he's going through it, trying to find it. When you look at what he got banged on, missing stuff in the heart of the plate, goes to Kyle Schwarber in that spot right before the Trey Turner homer. Just nothing near the zone, nothing competitive. And when his fastball was there, he's missing in big quadrants of the plate. So just stuff difficult all around for him. Its strike percentage is in a decent spot, but it's just because he's leaving stuff right in the heart of the plate. His fastball doesn't have that same zip, doesn't have the bite. Off-speed stuff, he has no clue where it's going. Trey Turner leaves one right there. Then you give up a slam, ball game's over. It's over by then. I didn't expect him to pitch his way out of that. I don't expect him to be spectacular right now. Is that a concerning feeling? Absolutely. It's tough when you have a guy that his ceiling, what he can be. And he's showing no signs of touching that. There's no spot where I feel like he's looking dominant. He had a few, and then, other starts where he gets, had some bad innings, but his stuff just does not look good. He doesn't have that same confidence up there, doesn't have that same command. It's just a tough place to be for him. So my guess of giving him, a couple more starts, it's a tough thing because it kind of looks like, where's he at? Is he healthy? That's the thing I'm kind of wondering right now.
Yeah. So in 4 starts since Miller came off the IL in June, he's allowed 19 runs in 17 innings, 17 and a third innings pitched. It's not great. And like you said, I think what's been most concerning is you maybe have seen a little bit of the flashes of, okay, like that's the Bobby Miller, but those have really been few and far between since he's come back. And even before he went on the IL, he wasn't great. Like there was some inconsistency, and maybe at the time, like there was a little bit of coping of thinking, okay, was he pitching through some some shoulder stuff, and so that's why his stats weren't what they were supposed to be or what everybody was expecting. Now, like, yes, it is only 4 starts, but like you said, how many more do you give him before sort of becoming seriously concerned? Like, is this just maybe who Bobby Miller is going to be this season? And and it's not necessarily any fault of his, but it becomes more problematic because Yoshinobu Yamamoto is dealing with his rotator cuff injury. We're going to get into Tyler Glasnow. He's now on the IL. Walker Buehler is, struggling as well. And like there weren't necessarily, I know you and I, like you wanted to be optimistic with Buehler, but realistically, like there wasn't a whole lot to expect from him. Bobby Miller was supposed to be, Glasnow, Yamamoto, Miller. Those are your 3 horses heading into the playoffs. And it's not an encouraging picture right now when you look at the status of those 3 guys.
Yeah, you look at the rotation right now. You've got Paxton, Bobby Miller, Gavin Stone, Landon Knack, and Justin Robleski. So how much confidence I can't wait to see the chat blow up with that. Like understanding who they have right there. It signals times where Andrew Friedman's going to have to go out and get some arms at the deadline. I would say 2. And I know Mike's going to fly in here and tell me they need 3. Somebody's going to go crazy and tell me they need 4 or 5. And you might be right in your own spot. But I would say that Andrew Friedman understands that he's got to go get 2 arms. I don't even want, my teams. I don't want to get to the point where saying it's not doable. I feel like if you're able to get 2 guys, two arms at the front, but you've got to be aggressive. If it's asking Andrew Friedman it's too much to be aggressive to go get guys who can start at the front end of your rotation. I don't know if I have that in me to say it, because I know Andrew Friedman can go out and make a move happen. But right now, Gavin Stone being kind of your number 1, with like Tyler Glasnow out, that's a tough thing. That's a really tough thing to have. I have confidence in Gavin Stone. I don't have confidence in Bobby Miller. James Paxton's an innings guy. Landon Knack, young arm. Robleski, no clue. It's just a very uncomfortable thing. Bullpen, I have more confidence in there. But as far as starting pitching, we're getting to a situation similar like last year. It's a tough thing. This is what we wanted to avoid. They were like, before this, a couple months ago, We were talking about how they had enough arms, and then the pitchers who are coming off IL, coming back from injury, could supplement that if one or two go down. Now those guys coming off injury are showing nothing. They're showing setbacks. Buehler's not with the team. He's trying to find himself in a walk year. Clayton Kershaw is, there's some news on him. And now Bobby Miller, to me, doesn't look healthy. He's showing no signs of improving. So it's a very slippery slope they're walking on right now. It's getting to the point where you might see a move here pretty soon. And we're, thank God the All-Star break's coming up so they can have a decent time to evaluate it.
Yeah, you couple key spots, a couple key things you hit on that I agree. Like, this is turning into a repeat of last year.
Yeah.
My concern, and I know that you sort of hinted at it, is that the Dodgers they're not in a position with the way whether injuries and or performances right now from the guys that are available. They're not in a position right now where you can trade for pitchers like in name only. I think it can't be a Lance Lynn situation. You need somebody who, like you said, can be someone, a starter capable of leading your rotation. Because right now, sure, we're going to get into Tyler Glasnow, but certainly there's reason for optimism that he's going to be fine once he is back. So great, that's one. Gavin Stone, yes, credit to him for putting together a tremendous first half of the season so far. I still am, I still am sort of concerned with, he is young, he doesn't have the playoff experience yet. What is that going to look like? Yes, it could pan out where he does pitch well. He continues to just, rise to the occasion and great, but that could easily go the other way. And so realistically, do you want him being a number 2 starter? Probably not. So, there's 3 weeks between now and the trade deadline. I think you to me are coming. You're pretty confident in Andrew Friedman knowing that he needs to address the rotation.
I would say, like, watching the team and understanding where they're at and looking around the league, it's been the same thing even before this. Chat, all these other shows I've done talking about it, people have the same type of thing. They understand that if you look at the standings right now, it's a lot of just spinning the wheels and a whole lot of mid. And for the expectations of where this Dodgers team is at and the potential they have offensively, like, if they want to say that, answer me this, Matt, real quick. Give me some hope or some despair that is Max Muncy going to play for the Dodgers this year?
Ooh.
Give me a percentage.
I think it's still like 35-40% chance that he's back. My bigger concern would be how much time is left in the season when he does come back.
Okay.
That's what I'm most worried about, is like his injury is going to really linger, and then he's going to be back like September and scramble to try to get him something into some sort of rhythm at the plate.
Whole lot of no's in chat. Thank you. So thinking about that you're waiting on Mookie Betts, and by all accounts, September, Matty man. Yeah. By all accounts, you're going to get Mookie Betts back. Muncy's done. Yep. Kenny, shout out to you, man. Thanks for being here. Then the offense is going to have to find some rhythm. They're going to have to find some role player guys. So not only do you have questions with the offense, now you've got to go out and get 2 front end guys. I think Andrew Friedman checking in early on Garrett Crochet signals to me, like, I don't know if that leak was supposed to come out, if the White Sox put it out just to do this, but if that's what they're doing, that Andrew Friedman's going out and he's gauging the market early. He understood weeks ago that we're talking with, he knew that there was some stuff that, there was a need for pitching. We all saw it. They know it. We're not firing Dave Roberts, guys. If I see that in chat one more time, it's just, you're watching the wrong thing. You're not looking at the roster. You're bored. But there is a definite need for 2 front-end guys now. I think Andrew Friedman can do it. I think he understands he has to do it. They're in a farm system spot where we've seen the Padres jettison multiple top guys, and they still have players they can, trade out. And for every single year, the Dodgers have a highly regarded farm system. We don't see these guys. We barely see them. If there was ever a year, we thought it was last year. But if there was ever a time, it's got to be now, because there's a for sure surefire need. You cannot lean on Walker Buehler coming back. You cannot lean on Clayton Kershaw. We're at a spot where it's either they do it or you're going to watch so much pressure go on these arms. Bobby Miller is going to stick in the rotation, get shelled. It's going to get worse. They kind of have to do it. They have to do it. If all the counting stats that people want to toss at me about how good their offense is just because they're at the top because of the games they pour it on, I really think that Andrew Friedman knows he has to make this move. Otherwise, the team's they're going to play well. They'll win games. But when it comes to a big series, what are you going to do? Can you count on these guys? I just don't know. It's the same thing with you. What are they going to do in the playoffs? I just don't have confidence anymore in the starting rotation that they have enough.
Yeah, that all makes sense. My concern, though, is I do feel, and maybe it's just a little bit of revisionist history, but I feel like more times than not, Andrew Friedman has sort of leaned on the internal stuff, like, oh, we have so-and-so coming back and so-and-so is going to be available. And so that's a trade deadline acquisition in itself with this guy coming off the IL, stuff like that. And so that's where I get a little worried. Real quick, we have another super chat from John Bleeding Blue. He says 0 for 11 with runners in scoring position and 12 left on base. Not good. Yeah, I mean, there like we said at the beginning of the show, there wasn't a whole lot of positive to take away from tonight. Kevin Biggio did hit a solo home run. It was already when the game was certainly well out of reach. Kike Hernandez pitched multiple innings. I don't know how many he ended up going, but definitely got more than one out. So yeah, and the runners in scoring position stuff, I mean, that's been a little bit of a theme. That's kind of been the Dodgers have been inconsistent in that sense in some regard, and there is some merit to that. Sometimes, though, I do think like that stat can be a little misleading. Is what if you have somebody on second base who isn't necessarily a burner, and you get a base hit, and he doesn't score because he doesn't have speed. The ball was hit too. Like some of the circumstances sometimes in that can be a little misleading with at least the left on base. But yeah, I mean, not get one hit with a runner in scoring position certainly isn't great. We have another super chat. This one's from David Garcia. He says, "Hold on, Dodgers in first by 7 games in the NL West. They have the 4th best record in the league. This is the first game against the Phillies, and they haven't played the Orioles and Guardians yet." So I feel like this is, David, you could maybe do a regular comment follow up, because I feel like this starts off maybe saying to not necessarily panic about things, but then at the end it says they haven't played the Orioles and Guardians yet, as in like that there's reason for concern because there's another test. So if you can provide some clarity, David, that would be appreciated. But Scott, how do you balance the Dodgers having another comfortable lead in the NL West and coming out flat? It is just one night, but coming out flat tonight against the Phillies.
I think this is a tough. This is me trying to understand, like, well, David, thanks for the super chat, man. Appreciate that. I would appreciate if the Dodgers don't look at their division lead right now and say they can just hold on to this and it's fine. Everything is fine. They have enough to get there, because as we've seen, we're here, we do this. My view on a lot of what the Dodgers do right now is from these last few years and how they operate during the regular season. All of us understand they have the formula to win during the regular season, no matter what. They just can do it. They have the ability. They have the minds there to make it happen. They can. He thinks Dodgers gonna be fine. Like they'll only be fine if they make moves. They do not currently have the options internally. If you brought up, David, you brought up the Orioles, you brought up the Guardians. Those are teams that have a wealth of pitching, So the Guardians, if people want to see good pitching, go pull up a Guardians game. The Dodgers right now don't have stuff close to that. This offense will need to figure it out if they can mitigate the loss of a lot of the starting pitching. And that's a concern. Something's got to click. The top of the order can't carry the load. You're going to have to see a full team effort there, but it's just going to be impossible when you have starts from Bobby Miller or starts from anyone that are reminiscent of what we saw in the NLDS. Because when I saw Bobby Miller put up that massive crooked number, it's all it made me think about. It was kind of like, like that was like my, oh my God moment. I was like, I can't believe this is actually happening again. It did strike me as that how south this can go. And we're talking about a guy in Bobby Miller that, by all accounts, who could be starting a playoff game for the Dodgers. And there's not much of his game you like right now. I'm sure he's hating himself for it. Dodgers are definitely evaluating it because it's the same type of situation as Walker Buehler. Big fastball guy, doesn't have a command for a lot of his stuff here. And there's not a lot to like. No passion, guys. Come on. Like, this is, don't say stuff like that. Like, they're up for a reason. They're winning ball games for a reason. It's just they lack some of the tools to have right now to be a highly consistent team. Everybody's going to laugh if they see the record, but we're talking about, you play a team like the Phillies who have pitching. You saw Wheeler go out tonight with an injury, so we'll see on that. They just activated Kyle Schwarber, Bryce Harper tonight. Schwarber's a big piece. Dodgers are missing some pieces, but they also have contributors at the bottom. So they have a lineup they're running with, Marchand, who's a quality backup catcher. Dodgers don't have that. You have Austin Barnes. So it's just difference in teams.
Easy. Austin Barnes got his pinch hit single today for Shohei Ohtani. It was
Yeah.
if you wouldn't have known who was the DH, you would have thought it was one and the same up there getting that knock.
Yeah, I got you. I know what you're saying, but my concerns are valid in that it's just they're going to win games. They're going to do it. They're playing well against good teams. They have a plus record. They have a 17-11 record against teams over 500, but that doesn't say much when the league's mid and all sitting around 500. So tough game tonight. Moves need to be made, man.
And so we do have a couple more super chats. Let's stick with these before we continue. David Garcia follows up. I agree. We got to make some moves, but we're going to be okay. He did have his other comment earlier saying the Dodgers will be fine. Jose Ayala says, guys, it's not good. They will need 2 quality arms. Yeah, I mean, I know, Scott, that's basically what you and I are in agreement with that. They certainly need 2 starting pitchers because, again, it's not only are they dealing with injuries, but with Yamamoto, if it was a freak accident, he sprained his ankle, he's going to be fine. He's going to be back. Okay, great. You could count on him. He was starting to really find a rhythm. He dominated against the Yankees. Like you could see a lot of the reason why the Dodgers gave him the richest contract for a pitcher in MLB history.
Mm-hmm.
He's dealing with a rotator cuff.
Yep.
And that, I don't want to say it's career ending for everybody, obviously, and it's not, but rotator cuffs can dramatically alter the trajectory of a pitcher's career. And so there's legitimate concern. I know you and I have some serious doubt as to whether or not Yamamoto will be back this year.
Yeah.
So, that's now taking out your clear number 2 starter out of your rotation. Gavin Stone maybe can ascend to that position, but like we said, he's still young. Like we don't know how that's going to necessarily go. If I would be a little bit more confident with Stone had he put together like a full season last year. Right now, look, you can only do what you've done, but he's pitched great, but it has only been half a season. Like we're going to have to see how things end up going. So yeah, the Dodgers, I think they need 2 quality arms, and then you could even argue they may even need a 3rd pitcher for depth. Although at that point, that might come from their farm system.
Yeah, no, I fully agree. It's going to sound like a broken record for a lot of this stuff, but you and I are aligned on Yamamoto. There's some serious doubt, and I saw somebody say no timeline is worse than a timeline. Absolutely. I mean, the unknown is always scarier. You have no clue. Looking at his contract and how dicey things can get with that, opt-outs that can be triggered if there are arm injuries, that's stuff that for the Dodgers, it's definitely a long-term play. And they're not going to mortgage that based off this year because there is a window to compete. Like there is definite belief within the organization that they can go find arms, and I'm sure they can. A lot of players just have to find a hot streak, and if there's somebody that they can maximize, then that's what they'll do. It feels to me like they're going to hunt for arms that are on expiring contracts, 1-year deals. That's why I bring up Eovaldi, Flaherty, arms like that. They can bring them in, and why Crochet just because he's the top arm in the market isn't so realistic. If they do it, then because Friedman's already inquired about it, and then there's a genuine need, then that's where they're going to go. But they're going to have to pay. They're going to have to pay up for arms. It's going to need to happen. I just don't believe. Like I saw Matty Man. That was the most optimistic thing I've seen you say in a long time. They're not throwing in the towel. There's definite need. Like there's definite need for stuff on the roster. But you look around Major League Baseball, and it's the same reason why to be optimistic. There's a whole lot of mid. You can get through this regular season. All you have to do is be ready for the playoffs. That's all you have to do. So if heading into the deadline, there's going to be these sobering moments where it says, yes, there's still work to be done. And why I don't want to hear if the Dodgers put up 14 runs, you tell me the offense is okay, and the next night they get blown out. The same thing like that. It's easy to get blinded and overwhelmed with how good things can be when it's all clicking. But when nights like tonight happen, then you start to say, okay, there's some things we have to break down.
Yeah, that's all fair. Let's stick with pitching. If you happen to miss it, Tyler Glasnow was placed on the 15-day injured list because of lower back tightness. It was backdated to July 6th. That's not necessarily making much of a difference in this case, though, because the All-Star break is coming up. Glasnow was due to start the Thursday's game against the Phillies. He's obviously not going to happen. It's not happening now. Scott, what's your level of concern here? Glasnow does have injury history, but that's always been elbow, forearm stuff. This is his first time with some back trouble. I know we were kind of texting about this beforehand, and you seem to be on the more like, oh, this is all fine side.
Yeah, I think so. I think I saw somewhere that they're not even doing imaging on his back. Like this is not something. It's a perfect time. Yeah, it's a perfect time for an injury. Major League Baseball, don't come after me for this, but it's a perfect time for an injury to spark up. If it's something that's just phantom, we're gonna drop it out there. Yeah, my back hurts too, Mike. I was just telling my family about that, but it's the perfect time for something like that to happen. That you can get him an extra long rest. He's not going to perform, and he's not going to pitch in the All-Star game. The fact that it just happened, he just pitched, you're able to get him some extra long rest here. And Dave Roberts immediately saying with a certain level of confidence saying that he'll rejoin the rotation right after the All-Star break. So this is a perfect time to phantom IL someone for an injury to spark up. And as long as it's not something with his arm, nothing on that front. If it's a minor back thing, I'm not concerned about it. My concern level is like 0.005 because I don't buy into it until we see some more. And Dave already giving a timeline on it and saying, we'll see how he feels when he wakes up. That gives me a very positive level of confidence.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree with you. I think that's all fair. I know I did see obviously when the move was announced that the Glasnow was going on the IL with some back trouble. There was a lot of skepticism online, and that's fair. I think in years past, I think it still does happen. In years past, I think it was more rampant. Recently, I think it was earlier this year. The Mets got in trouble for prior transgressions with kind of phantom IL stints and making things up. So MLB is policing this stuff. I think though, when it's a back, that is easy to sort of mask because how do you tell? So, like you said, your back hurts. I'm sitting here right now. My back is a little achy. Like how do you tell? Like you can have an achy back without any sort of structural damage, right? And you could do an MRI and nothing maybe will come up or not a whole lot will come up. So I think it is one of those things where it's like, hey, your back is a little sore. Let's take the break now. So I am inclined to agree that it is more that than any sort of like significant reason for concern with Glasnow. All of that being said, what I still do find a little bit interesting is the timing of it because yes, he's going to get a prolonged stretch off with not pitching this week, and then the All-Star break is next week, and then he can be back. What I'm going to be curious to see now is if the Dodgers don't try to basically bake in like another IL stint later in the year. Because I would have agreed, like if you had told me, hey, at some point they're going to put him on the IL just to give him a breather, I would have said, yeah, that makes sense. Probably in September, or maybe not September, maybe late August, early September, potentially. If they have a huge lead in the NL West, they can kind of do it, get them a breather before the postseason starts. So now what I'm interested to see is this kind of, if they're looking at it as, okay, this is the longest period he can get off from pitching, so then we'll be good with this, or are they going to try and get him another break down the stretch?
Could be. Absolutely. Very fair point. With where his innings are at the moment, it's a very fair point. You don't need to expose him anymore right now. If he's looking like he needs a breather, give it to him. If you're able to do it within the rules and all things are clear there, it gives them another excuse or something else to spark up later on in the year where you manufacture these things in. So I think it's a very fair point. They're aware of the innings. They're aware of the workload. They're always they're always mindful of an arm that's in that spot here, which is why they're trying to push some guys back, not force them out there. It's very uncharacteristic if you hear the Dodgers, keeping a guy on regular rest when they know their back's up against the wall on some of these inning things. They're very cautious with starting pitchers, very cautious with arms. And for the reason that they've always had some depth within the organization to eat these innings, because at the end of the day, a lot of these games, they all matter because when it comes down to positions in the playoffs and standings and things like that, games do matter. But at the end of the day, it's not worth risking health of some of these arms to force them out there just for a game in July in the All-Star game. So I think, to your point, this gives them a great opportunity to give him some rest now and possibly later on down the season when he'll really need it, heading right into the playoffs where, by all accounts, like with anybody else, barring that or Yamamoto news, he's going to be the ace.
Yeah. You mentioned Glasnow's innings. He's at 109 so far this season, which is its third highest total of his career. He set a career high of 120 innings last year with the Rays. Other than this season, last year, the only other time Glasnow surpassed 100 innings in a year was 2018. That was 111 and 2/3. So he's definitely on track to shatter his career high mark, and this is definitely going to be the biggest workload he's had to carry. I I think what's encouraging is, so I know there've been, in terms of performance, there've been some bumps in the road, but for the most part, he's lived up to the billing. I know when the trade happened, you and Blake were telling us how he's an ace and this and that. And for the most part, I think Glasnow has certainly met those expectations, and he has stayed healthy. A subplot to all of this is, with Glasnow going on the IL, Hunter Green of the Cincinnati Reds was immediately named the injury replacement for him on the National League team for the All-Star game. Scott, my question to you is, what is it going to take for Gavin Stone to get some respect?
It's being who he is. There's going to be some more, some guys still opting out. Keeps coming down, announcements of who's playing, who's not. We saw Rafael Devers from the American League go out. Jordan Westberg. Position players aside, there will be arms that I forgot who just is pitching. I think Chris Sale. Sale's going, and then he's going to be out. So I don't know if they've named a replacement for him yet. So they're definitely Gavin Stone, for what he's done this year. He's been one of the most valuable starting pitchers in Major League Baseball, and that would be an incredible nod to him. I'm excited if he gets the nod there. It would be terrific if Glasnow, bows out, takes this break. Hunter Green got it. He's deserving. But it would be terrific if Gavin Stone is able to get that nod there, because he's done everything. He's pitched in big games against the Yankees. That was a big wow moment for me. I'm excited to see him in big spots down the stretch. But again, a lot of these guys are going up against innings limits, and you have to be mindful of it. I really want him to make it. Yeah, Matty Man, I'm with you. I want him to make it. Do I want him to pitch necessarily? I don't know, but it would definitely be an homage to, really where, all the work he's put in on and off the field and how he's performed this season. But I just know there's a lot. It's a loaded class right now.
Yeah, definitely. So we should have an idea on Stone by Sunday, maybe Monday at the latest, whether or not he's going to be any sort of replacement to, like you said, Chris Sale's supposed to start. I think he started tonight, and then he's supposed to start again on Sunday. So if that ends up happening, then he'll be ineligible to pitch in the All-Star game. And so a replacement will need to be named for him. And maybe it's Gavin Stone, maybe it's not.
Yeah. And then people are saying, Wheeler is,
that's right.
After this. So it's going to be, he was named. So we'll see. There's going to be some replacements. So I think Gavin Stone definitely gets named. That's exciting. That's exciting stuff.
Yeah, definitely. And so the bigger news here, though, is that Glasnow is on the IL for now with some lower back tightness. He's going to get about 2 weeks off. It was backdated to July 6th. He's going to get about 2 weeks off anyway, just because of the All-Star break. He's only, as of now, he's only missing one scheduled start, which is this Thursday against the Phillies.
Yep.
Dodgers coming out of the All-Star break, they have a homestand. They started against the Red Sox, so maybe we see Glasnow back as soon as that.
Can I ask you, and I know a lot of people in chat will agree, do you like in a start like this, do you think it's good to hold off on, some of your big starting pitchers, if you don't have to have them pitch against, a Philadelphia Phillies lineup, to let them get a look at him? Are you happy about that he doesn't have to pitch against that lineup?
I don't really care.
Okay.
I have too much of a competitor in me to say, the Dodgers, I know, let's say Glasnow was healthy and the Dodgers just gave him an extra day of rest, and so it bumped him out of this series. That's something they do 9 times out of 10 anyway, so I wouldn't read anything of it. If they made some changes to give him all of a sudden 2 or 3 extra days of rest, I would say, come on, guys, you're running away from it. I can see that. I've heard players say that, yes, it is a benefit for the hitters to see a pitcher multiple times, but to me, man, let's just play.
Yeah. Absolutely.
All right. We have some super chats, so let's get to those. Rod says, many sellers and a lot of buyers, it will cost us. I think this is a great point, and it's one thing that I'm going to be curious to see how Andrew Friedman sort of navigates it, because historically he's not one to do the bidding wars. And so you mentioned Garrett Crochet. He's obviously, I think, probably safe to say the biggest name in terms of starting pitchers who's available, at least known right now. And if there's a market that develops for him, would I be fully surprised to see Andrew Friedman pivot and get other pitchers? Not really. Yeah,
no. Yeah, Rod, thanks for being here. Thanks for the chat. Thanks for almost 1,100 people in here. Shout out to you guys. Yeah, I agree on a couple fronts, but I think we're underestimating that, because there are a lot of teams that are close to making it. or, right on the cusp or in the wild card hunt, there's probably a lot of teams that say we don't have to make moves. We can stand pat and just roll in there and see what we got. There's going to be a lot of teams out there that just make very small moves on the margins, and they just roll, and they say the guys that we have coming off the IL, not saying the Dodgers guys, I'm saying other teams that say, we have a lot of players coming off the IL. They're just going to roll with what they have because it's just not worth it for them. They're not an elite. They don't view themselves as an elite team. They don't just look at that. So I think we're all overestimating how many teams are going to be going all in or willing to spend on the prospect front to go get an arm like Garrett Crochet or do something like that. But he is definitely the pinnacle just from years and his production this season and how much of a weapon his arsenal can be in the postseason if it projects out the same way. But there's just some very interesting arms out there. It's just, there's so many injuries right now. Pitching is doing its thing. Offense is at a premium all around Major League Baseball. So there will be some moves, I think. That's why moves on the margins for the Dodgers in terms of just like role-playing bats, it has to be the right ones. And that's when, if it's going to be an impact bat, you will have to pay for that. But if it's something you need, it's something you need. And that's why I'm kind of hinging on, I know Joe Davis spoke on Dodgers territory, that he believes that there will be an impact bat added. I'm in that same camp, that I think that if there's going to be a move to be made for a bat, it's easier to go get more of a surefire thing, someone who you don't have to hope his splits project with the same team. So that's kind of where I'm at. But I think we're overestimating how many teams will be sellers and how many teams will be all-in buyers.
I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit here. You're saying you think the Dodgers are getting an impact bat. Do you see that coming shortstop, outfield? I'll even at third base at this point.
Yeah. So it's this is a good, I appreciate that, layup, but it's with Miguel Vargas. And if he keeps playing well and they're going to give him some opportunities, maybe at third base, Muncy being out poses an opportunity for them to look at the deadline on a few fronts that you can say, go get an infielder. If you have Miguel Vargas who can play a competent third base, just competent. He played I think it's like 175 innings last year in AAA. And I think he made 3 errors out of like 47 chances. So if you're willing to say he can play an okay third base, then I think the pool of players opens up so much more to a corner outfield spot. I think that's the route that they'll go. I think it's easier for them to do that. And there are bats out there, Randy Arozarena, Luis Robert, if they decide to go that way. Tommy Pham, JJ Bleday, just for Mike Carrillo in here. Thanks, man. I did some digging. But I think it's easier to go find, a corner outfielder that you're more, you can project a little more.
Yeah. Let's get to, we have one more super chat. This one's from Richard Flores. He says, this is going to cause a stir, but would Bauer, who you can get for a 6-pack of beer, be a possibility, or too political and a PR nightmare? I think the Dodgers and Bauer are pretty much done. I think if any team was interested in signing Bauer, it probably would have happened by now. And I'll just, kind of leave it at that. There's a reason that stuff hasn't, and nothing like that has happened. I know that there've been some reports of maybe potential interest in him, but I don't see from other teams. I don't see the Dodgers going anywhere near that. And I don't think any other team is going to be interested. But Richard, we appreciate the super chat. I know Bauer. I have seen some comments from Bauer the past couple of weeks, but I think that situation just sort of speaks for itself.
Yeah, absolutely. There would have been a lot more teams around Major League Baseball to dive in on Trevor Bauer, and it says a lot for the lack of action there. And I don't think the Dodgers are going to commit that money, release him, let Major League Baseball do its thing, and then bring him back. It's just it's something that's gone.
Yeah. All right, let's move on. So our final planned topic for tonight, before we open it up to you guys for all your questions, is on Clayton Kershaw. He pitched in a simulated game. He faced some batters at Dodger Stadium on Saturday. He's now scheduled to restart his rehab assignment, if you will. It's going to come on Saturday. His simulated game was Sunday at Dodger Stadium. His rehab assignment is scheduled to begin Saturday with Oklahoma City. The hope is Kershaw is going to go 3 innings. He threw 37 pitches over 3 innings for the Quakes on June 19th, but then had to stop his kind of recovery and rehab process because of some soreness in his shoulder. Scott, we've been talking about starting pitching a lot tonight. Considering the state of the rotation, is Kershaw, a welcomed return? Is there? I know you've been concerned maybe and have questioned
Yeah.
what he could potentially even contribute once he
Yes.
comes back. But are you talking yourself now into more of like, hey, Clayton Kershaw can be a number 3 starter for this team?
Optimistically, I mean, if I'm putting my Jeff cap on and saying that, this is best case scenario for what Clayton Kershaw can roll out, you need the arms. I'm not going to say I'm going to put blinders on and say that, yep, Clayton Kershaw is going to return and do all that. He still has to, show a decent run of health, something where he's going to go out here and be able to, actually successfully put on a rehab assignment and some, deep starts. I would say 5 innings. If I don't see 5 innings from Clayton Kershaw, it's going to be a tough sell. We saw what his stuff played in the playoffs last year, and it was horrific. It was really bad. It was upsetting. It was tough to see 22 like that. And for where it's at, big surgery for him. He himself even had to think about it, almost put him into retirement. Was he going to have that procedure? So I can talk myself into saying that, yes, like Clayton Kershaw, I hope that he finds a good run for his arm, his health, and his strength and his stuff, that it's at a confident point where we can say, now we can start to talk about him in a position where, if he's on the cusp, if he's somewhere, do you feel comfortable putting him in a playoff game? Is he going to make it there? Is he going to have the, enough stamina to do it? Will his body hold up? But I can't say enough. We can't say enough at all. It's the same thing with Walker Buehler. We just don't know. He could be a different guy. We haven't seen it because people have been saying it in the chat. Minor league stuff doesn't project all the time, almost never. It's very rare cases that a starting pitcher coming back on a rehab assignment just completely transitions unless they're blowing hitters away. And right now we just haven't seen it. I'll have to wait till we get closer to that, but it's good that we have somebody of Clayton Kershaw's caliber that is still coming back with by all accounts, he's not done. And until he's done, there's still an opportunity and the door's open.
Yeah. So you mentioned wanting to see some length and results from rehab starts. His first one, I think, was okay. In terms of length, if all goes well for Kershaw this Saturday with OKC, the plan would be another rehab start. Whether that's at the AAA level or back with the Quakes will be decided later, but another rehab outing of at least 4 innings, and then potentially a third rehab start, which would be his 4th overall if you include when he was paused last month. Or after going 4 innings down at the minor level, then potentially he's back with the Dodgers at that point. And he would be stretched out to, kind of 5 innings. And then maybe the start after that, he could go touch the 6th and stuff and things like that. All right. We have a huge super chat. Right Field Pavilion. I know he's person. I don't know if it's male or female, so I apologize, but you've been in here pretty much every week with us. $50 super chat. We can't thank you enough for that. This is huge, guys.
Yeah.
This Dodgers record on this date last year, 51-38. Current record is 55-37. Dodgers will be fine. Go Dodgers. Keep up the good work, fellas. We appreciate you recognizing us. We appreciate you constantly being in here and certainly supporting the show with this very generous super chat. The record thing I can understand. It is fair to point out. I think with that being said, you also need to look at the current roster and how things are sort of projecting moving forward. Again, the Dodgers, for the most part, got to 55-37 with a lot of Yoshinobu Yamamoto. Whether he's back this season, we don't necessarily know. Mookie Betts should be back, so fine. Yeah. Max Muncy, has been out for a really long time, so he hasn't necessarily been significantly part of their record so far this year. So I can understand the optimism, but again, my concern, and you mentioned it, Scott, is we've seen the Dodgers have figured out the regular season. They can. I don't take it for granted, but they can basically win 100 games with their eyes closed. They have enough talent on this team. They have enough organizational depth to get through a 162-game season where on a random Wednesday, on a random Sunday, you're facing another team's 4th or 5th best starters. Maybe their bullpen has also been taxed. When you get into the postseason, it's a completely different animal, and that's where my concern harbors and sits.
Yeah, I'm fully with you. Right Field Pavilion, thanks for the super chat. It's awesome. I know I've seen you in some comments giving supporting me. Thank you so much. It's a okay thing to lean on the record when you can not have to worry about losing a spot in the standings or first place or the wild card, and you can coast there. I just don't want it to be another scenario like last year. Matt, I have to ask you, now that we're a year removed from the 2023 deadline and the inactivity there, and everybody's saying the role players just weren't good enough, do you think the Dodgers standing pat was a plan all along, or the big, the thing, they just didn't view it as much of a need, like to get a bat? Now we can answer that, and then we can look towards this year. Now, are they going to do the same thing again?
I think it was a little bit of both. I think if maybe there was an opportunity to get like some significant upgrade, all-star caliber, like they would have done it. But I mean, it was no secret that the Dodgers were gearing up for a run at Ohtani.
Ohtani, yes.
And so, looking at payroll and all that stuff, like that ended up being a factor. What I wonder, and there's no way to, unless, maybe you give Andrew Friedman some truth serum, had they known that Ohtani would have deferred $680 million, like would they have approached the trade deadline last year a little bit differently? Like that's what I would be interested in knowing. But I think it was a lot of, that was kind of the plan. They didn't want to punt the season, but one, they always believe in their organizational depth anyway. Two, they were getting ready to go after Ohtani. I think the second part of your question was, do I think that'll happen again this year? It wouldn't shock me. Because I think I could very easily see them, and it does make sense on some level that, hey, Mookie Betts is coming back. Hey, Max Muncy's coming back. I think they'll try selling that Yoshinobu Yamamoto is coming back. I'm just a little bit more skeptical on that one than maybe the organization publicly might be. So for me, I think the Dodgers will ultimately either make a proverbial splash with an impact bat or in the rotation. I don't think they necessarily do both.
It's a great answer. Yeah, this would be the year for them to do it. It's just always tough to land a bat. It just always is. It feels like pitchers move so much more. Just need for pitching. Run prevention's everything. But if you just look at who the Dodgers have in the stable for starting pitching right now, that's the clearest need. And I'm with you. If it's that they hold off on a big bat, they will then definitely do that. I just think that if they do it, they will go get somebody that's impactful. If they don't project Max Muncy is going to be back. And the fact that his timeline's been pushed multiple times, we've seen how without Max Muncy, some guys have been exposed, and you have, hitters who shouldn't be batting from 6 and up, they're creeping up there, and it's getting tough. I feel like they're not maximizing spots on the roster right now. I feel like Austin Barnes, it's a spot where you could definitely maximize your offense there. Their role players don't have platoon splits. I said earlier, Gavin Lux is 0 for his last 18, somewhere around there. They just lack the ability to power their way against righties towards the bottom half of their lineup. It's just a tough deal. But it could be a situation where there's just too many spots to fill, too many things that we say, oh yeah, they're gonna supplement it with somebody outside the organization or someone from AAA. It probably will be one of those scenarios because it's not fantasy baseball. We see all this stuff in chat. But there will be spots where they're going to bank on someone getting hot. It's just a matter of towards the end of the season, who will be that trio, who will be the few that make it all the way through there, because I don't see Kevin Biggio staying with the team the rest of the year. We've had conversations about Gavin Lux not being there, past the deadline, him getting moved somewhere else. So it's a matter of we'll look, and this team could be different on the margins after the 31st. It's just a matter of getting there and not having it look so ugly on our way.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so let's do questions from you guys. And as a reminder, just start it with question in all caps. That makes it easier for Scott and I to pick it out as we're scrolling through the chat. And while those start to come in, Scott, I want to sort of tee you up. There's a Rangers trade possibility that maybe you think the Dodgers could potentially explore or should explore.
I think that, there's been some tumble. I know David Vassay spoke about it, like a reunion with Nathan Eovaldi. And my whole thing about the cost that it'll take, the Dodgers usually don't go after the number one starting pitcher on the market just for bidding purposes. And this year, especially, I think that Nathan Eovaldi would be a terrific ad. Someone with postseason pedigree. He'll go out there. He's a dog. We need pitchers. I know. I think Matty Mann said we need 4 dogs. Somebody did. You need someone who can anchor a staff, who's not afraid to go up there and make mistakes, throw strikes, who has been consistent in the postseason throughout his entire career. He's even shoved it down the Dodgers' throat. it's going to take some time. I know I see people. Yeah, Deuce, I see you. It's the Rangers will have to continue to lose. So you have to bank on that. It's tough because you have just a couple arms like Crochet, Flaherty. Flaherty, there's some questions. He just had a couple injections. So, who will be healthy? Who's going to project? But I really hope that Nathan Eovaldi is a Dodger. That's someone. And I know I joked about Max Scherzer. That's something I don't necessarily want to touch. But if you want to kill two birds with one stone and go get two arms, that's there. There needs to be multiple additions. And if they get one top end guy and someone that's just maybe a number 3 and you let Gavin Stone eat and then you just push everybody down, that could be another way. Now it doesn't have to be 2 aces. So if you get your 1A is Nathan Eovaldi and then you get someone with some upside, that could be the route.
Dave Luna says Rich Hill is sitting on the couch right now waiting to be signed after the All-Star break.
Jeez.
I don't hate it. I mean, he can't be like your top starter added to the rotation. But hey, if he's an extra guy you're just bringing in, I don't hate it. We have a couple about Bobby Miller. So NS says, should Miller be sent down with his 8.07 ERA? Noisy Ninja 91 says, would it benefit Bobby to be sent down to work on confidence when things go his way? I think she means when things don't go his way, everything snowballs. He needs that Gavin Stone type of confidence on the mound. I think for starters, the Dodgers don't have enough depth to send Bobby Miller down to the minors right now, because if you do that, I don't know what you're doing at that point in terms of filling out the rotation. But that aside, do you see a scenario where maybe Bobby Miller would benefit from being sent to OKC?
Do we think he's healthy? I think is the question. Do we think Bobby Miller is completely healthy, Matt? Do you feel he is?
I think that he is.
Okay.
I think he just hasn't found it this season. He was out longer when he first went on the IL. They said it was, I know Dave Roberts says it 9 times out of 10, but he said it was going to be a short stint. He'd be back quickly. He was out for 2 months, I think it ended up being. It was a decent amount of time.
Yes.
And when they brought him back, it wasn't, I know it was on the heels of like Yamamoto just getting hurt, but also the Miller move was announced before the Yamamoto stuff even happened. So it wasn't like in reaction to that. And then Buehler ended up taking the comebacker off his hip right around that same time. In my opinion, they wouldn't have brought him back when they did if he wasn't healthy. Now, I guess, is it possible that he was healthy and now his shoulder's bothering him? I guess, but I don't think it's really health related right now.
Okay. Yeah, no, my only thing would be his health as far as fatigue, stamina concerns, and that's just on that front. Like if he has to go out and overthrow, if he really has to find it and he's throwing a little too hard, he's having to, do something extra to lock it in. That's an area where I don't want to get. And to everybody, saying that stuff, that could he benefit from a stint in the minors again? Yeah, like it wouldn't hurt. It definitely wouldn't hurt. Because if he's staying up at the major league level and continuing to get shelled and having these spring training starts to what he said he feels like this window is, it can be detrimental to some confidence. Would it be better playing in AAA where it's a launch pad as well? I think it would be. It couldn't hurt, I think, is the thing I'll end on.
Well, hey, maybe just send him to Rancho Cucamonga, then let him dominate some A-ball players, and then bring them back up after the confidence is boosted. 300 GJW, another super chat. Blake is trolling us doomsdayers. LOL.
Yes, he is.
If you missed it, I'm not even going to put it up. Blake's question was, should the Dodgers punt the season and be sellers? We can just keep moving on. Yes, 300 GJW. Blake was definitely giving you guys a hard time.
Go golf, Blake.
Let's see what other questions we have here.
Shout out to the 1200 in here. Thanks, everybody. Yeah, this was a tough one. That's why we're here.
Gabriel Fernandez says, question Julio Rodriguez. I mean, that would be great, but I don't think he's necessarily available.
No, definitely not. He's had a super down season from where he peaked at in prior years with the Mariners. There's no reason for them to get rid of him. It's not going to happen. He's a superstar caliber player and a pillar piece to an organization. He's not going anywhere.
Hawaiian Kira says, if no major moves are made or could be made, would that surprise you? I expressed it earlier. I wouldn't be fully surprised. Scott, I don't know if you want to add anything.
Major moves. Andrew Friedman will always say, we tried. The cost didn't line up. He is an opportunity. He will weigh the cost. He will always gauge what it'll take. the willingness in me to, I would say, is he going to am I willing a trade to happening? I think I just looking at the season, looking at where the team is at, the needs, the rest of the league. It's how I've been viewing the team for a bit. It's a perfect opportunity to be one of those teams where you go in, like you go out and fill the needs, fill the holes on your thing. And that's how you do it. It's what the Braves did when they won a ring. They had a definite need in the outfield. They made those moves quick. They figured out the role players and they went on and won a ring. It's a situation where I feel like the Dodgers have it. There's just some definite holes. And if the pitching continues to trend down, could we get too far that way? Could it go sideways? Or they stay at the top of the division, which I foresee. And then we get to the playoffs. And then we really, find out where those squeaky wheels were. And those playoff opportunities the last few years have what turned me into who I am now, where I'm not just going to say, yes, they're in first in the division. They're doing fine. It's just a matter of believing in Kike and James Outman. And that's the old me,
Scott completed his, what were you calling it? Your Joker arc last year?
Joker arc. It's just irresponsible. It's irresponsible as a fan. Like, I understand having blind optimism and doing that, but you just coming on here and having me do that. I just refuse. I can't just tell you everything is going to be okay because of we watch 162 games plus. And then you get to the postseason and you see the flops. And then it's important to understand that were they built for it, that it can all be over so quick. And those are the sobering moments that kill you as a fan.
Normally says, wouldn't addressing the infield bats be a greater priority than pitching since there may be returning arms like Kershaw or even Hurt? A more balanced lineup could help offset a weakened staff. Kyle Hurt was taken out of his last start for OKC because of I think the report right now is elbow soreness or some sort of elbow trouble. But I think there is reason to be concerned there for his outlook this season. And again, we were discussing Kershaw. Yes, he is coming back, but he also had major shoulder surgery during the offseason. He's 36 years old now. Ton of innings. He's not throwing 95 mile per hour fastballs anymore or higher. So I think, to me, coupled with Yamamoto's rotator cuff injury, you need a starting pitcher, because in terms of the lineup right now is hopefully not what it'll be. At the very least, Mookie Betts should be back this year. So you're getting him. Max Muncy, hopefully he's back, maybe not. Let me ask you another sort of lineup related infield back questions. Let's say Muncy, regardless of the situation at third base, are you a little surprised that maybe they don't just consider Vargas at second base, considering what we've seen from Gavin Lux?
It's getting to that point. It's just they're thin. It's who you believe out there. Gavin Lux gives you a baseline on defense for what he's doing offensively. He's approaching Chris Taylor peak terrible streak. Like, we're approaching that with Gavin Lux. He's an automatic rollover to second base. It's not good for what Gavin Lux has done. It's getting to that area, Matt. You have to explore all options right now. And if they believe Chris Taylor's trending up, but he's kind of, it's all up in the air. They don't have a good collection. They don't have anyone who's shown, a solid run. Chris Taylor, Kike Hernandez, Gavin Lux, Kevin Biggio. It's a rough group. But it's getting to the point where the heat's been taken off of Gavin Lux because you've needed him. You've needed him at second base against right-handed pitching, but he can't hit righties. He can't hit at all. What do you want us to do with it? There's enough holes where you just have to keep running guys out there. It's tough when you look at a team like the Phillies and you have Bryson Stott, you have Alec Boehm, you have Trey Turner, Bryce Harper just came back, Kyle Schwarber DH. Their issue is the outfield, and it's easier to find some outfielders there than it is infielders, I think. So two contrasting teams. One's got pretty solid pitching depth in the Phillies. They've got front end guys up and down. With the Dodgers, thin there, and the supporting cast is one of the worst in Major League Baseball. I feel like they're letting go of they're willingly accepting offensive holes by keeping some of these guys and starting them. If you really want to know, like, you could supplement your backup catcher with somebody else, but it's the trust in Austin Barnes and what he does for the pitching staff. You could give a few guys in your farm system some run who have shown some upside that are aging out. You could give them that opportunity, but they're not, because the veterans on the roster have major league contracts and you just don't cut bait. And that's just at least not what the Dodgers do. So I feel like there could be work done. It's just, they're just not going to do it. They're going to wait to the deadline, and then we'll see. We'll see. Just like you said, you gave me some hope. You said you don't see Gavin Lux with the team past the deadline.
Yeah,
so
that would surprise me.
That would be a move that signals that they're prepared to go ahead. But again, I'll keep hinging on that there might be some Swiss cheese on this roster and that there's too many holes to fill. Yeah, Kira, fill the holes. Yeah, it'd have to take some overhaul. But you don't. The good thing is you have 5 guys up at the top where you don't have to worry about it. You just don't. You set them, forget it, and let it go. It's just the rest you've got to work in. That the role players aren't rolling. That's what. And you like that one?
Speaking of one of the top 5 guys, Larry says, is it too late to think about Ohtani playing the outfield, leaving more optionality for the DH spot with potential trade acquisitions? Ohtani's not playing the outfield this season. I know that was kind of kicked around a little bit during spring training, but it's not going to happen. He has no business. The only time he should be throwing a baseball is with his throwing program, when he's out on flat ground, just building his arm up, getting ready to be back on the mound for next season. Let's see what else we have here. It was Ohtani related. Here we go. Eric Flores. Who pitches first, Ohtani or Yamamoto?
That's a good question. I'd say Ohtani in a major league game. Are we just saying rehab stuff?
No, let's say for the Dodgers.
Shohei Ohtani, because if he's healthy, then I could see him starting the season, getting an opening day start.
I am skeptical of Yamamoto's status and availability for this year, but I do think that he at least gives it a go, because to me, if he has a significant rotator cuff injury that's going to require surgery, whether he has it now or in September is a wash. So I think he and the Dodgers give it a shot of, hey, can you pitch through, whatever might be going on, maybe 1 or 2 starts. So I think he makes at least 1 start for the Dodgers this year. So
I want to know what the timer's at, how many days he's been on the IL, because I think it's 134 consecutive days on the IL. It triggers an opt-out after,
or it delays it, it pushes it back after, it keeps him under team control, I think, right, for 1 more year.
I think it, I mean, maybe, but I'm pretty sure it triggers the ability to opt out after the 2031 season, something like that. Check that out, but that's something that they might be keeping an eye on.
Yeah.
Just saying. They could be doing that. Yeah. That's something I've had in mind.
Los Dodgers World Series champs wants to know if, Scott, do you think teams actually like the Dodgers prospects?
We saw what Andrew Friedman did with Michael Busch. I mean, I know a lot of people would say they would like to have Michael Busch on the team right now, but Jackson Ferris is a hell of a prospect. They've got a terrific lefty in Jackson Ferris, who is incredible. He's someone, it's a fair thing. Do the Dodgers prospects, there's only been, how many have left the Dodgers and blossomed, gone completely off? Ryan Pepio, that's a long-term play there. Tons of control. DeLuca, that's someone who's just a role-playing bat. As far as younger guys, Diego Cartaya is becoming an interesting name again, because he's caught a ton of steam lately. He got called up to AAA and he's been doing pretty well. There could be a shtick with the Dodgers prospects that their evaluations are different from the rest of the league. Adam, go away. I don't want to tell you Jordan. Come on. That's old stuff. But there are a lot. There's a ton of prospects like De La Cruz, or not De La Cruz, Jose De Paula. There's a lot. People are talking about Dalton Rushing, players that need to get traded because they just don't have a spot. It's just about finding a dance partner. Andrew Friedman, that might be his thing, that there's some players, some prospects where it's you feel you need to trade them, but he's not just going to trade them just to trade them. He'll hold them as long as he needs to and reset the clock on someone like Michael Busch and go that route, instead of just adding them in just because the team wants them and the Dodgers need to fill that spot, or it's roadblocked at the major league level. But that's a good point. It's something that people have to understand as well. You have to find, a team that values your prospects, just like some of the national boards do, because a lot of those prospect rankings don't matter to teams. It matters to us, but to what teams like and what they look for, some of those have no meaning to some of these other teams.
Yeah. Tim G. So this isn't a question from Tim, but he says he's more optimistic about Yamamoto because he's on the 15-day, not the 60-day IL. Tim, I don't want to rain on your parade, but at least speaking for the Dodgers, very rarely do they put a player immediately on the 60-day IL. So sure, maybe that's a reason to be slightly optimistic, but I would venture to guess that the rotator cuff injury is going to keep Yamamoto out closer to 60 days than 15, and which we're already past at this point. And so that's kind of more of just a procedural move, at least speaking for the Dodgers specifically. I don't follow enough teams, other teams' kind of injury transactions closely enough, but the Dodgers historically will do a 15-day IL and then only do the 60-day if and when it becomes necessary, maybe if they end up needing a 40-man roster spot at some point. All right, let's see. We'll answer a few more. Reminder, if you could just start it with question in all caps, that helps us out. Here, this Thinking of Nothing says, how are the Phillies batters unable to hit Kike's pitch? His pitches look like they, I don't know, maybe are easy to hit. I think that's always a position player pitching, I think, is always strange for hitters up there. I think it sounds easier. Like for us, we're watching and oh, he's throwing so slow. How could you not hit that? Whereas in reality, we've heard players say it's weird the way the ball is sort of floating up there. Let's see. Yeah, this is one, Scott. This is we had a similar question when I was on with Blake the other night. Hepatitis See You Later says, when are reporters going to call out Friedman for whiffing the past 6 years on position players outside of Smith? You and Blake have been on this train recently of the Dodgers don't develop position players. Do you think it's past time for Friedman in the front office to get some blame for that or some criticism? And is there a trend that you maybe have noticed, an explanation?
It's certainly been a trend. You can certainly see it that Will Smith has been, by all accounts, the only one to really receive. He's the second contract with the Dodgers. He's, blossomed more than any of them. We've seen Cody Hosey. We've seen a lot of these guys, Michael Bush, Andrew Friedman benefited from Ned Colletti's offensive players that he drafted. But to GI, what he said, and I've brought that up anytime I talk about this topic, that Andrew Friedman drafts pitching. Teams covet pitching. That's why you see at the deadlines in the offseason, they're looking for pitching. Offense, you kind of develop, or if you do, I think that Andrew Friedman likes to deal for bats and keep those as pillars on the team and extend or, have young offensive players that route because it's easier to develop pitching and build them a philosophy and something to be successful, which the Dodgers have consistently done. So I think that's easy for them to lean on, and it's worked. That's why they have farm systems that are highly regarded, that they might have one or two offensive pieces that are clicking, but the majority in the bulk are all starters or reliever types, high octane arms. So I think there's definitely a philosophy within the organization to do that. And it's working for them. Is it a problem? It's only been a problem at times like right now when all those, the Corey Seagers, Cody Bellingers, those guys are gone. Where's this next wave? That's the only time it's been a problem. So is it hindering them? Only on the peripherals, only on the margins, that they don't have these high upside guys. They don't have a Jackson Merrill who's going to come up and immediately play. It's that you have James Outman that is a defensive guy and you say he's giving you enough with his bat. Let's see what he's got. Andy Paez, fast riser, had some, pop in spring training, bring him up, see what he's got, but he's showing extreme splits. So they don't have not these surefire guys, and nothing's a surefire, but it's who is separating themselves, and they've had them. They've been far and few, or they haven't been given an opportunity. And Miguel Vargas is the closest one that we've seen from a pure offensive prospect in the organization, which is why that's the guy we've been banging the table for a few years. Give him some run, stop the platoon nonsense immediately. Like you brought it up, Matt, that right when they call somebody up, it's an immediate platoon. And that's someone they just have to see with Miguel Vargas, what he's got. Otherwise, what are you doing here? These guys are going to age out. They're going to be in AAA, and then they're just depth, non-impactful depth. And then you can't trade them. Teams don't want that because, they have control, but it's maybe for 3 years and they're immediately off arbitration. And then it's just useless.
Yeah. One theory from Deuce is Logan White was key to Dodgers scouting. Potentially Logan White's now with the Padres. I did see. Okay, we'll answer a couple more here, and then we're going to sign off for the night. Alleluia One says, "Will we ever see the projected team as a whole? The team they were supposed to send out on opening day?" Referencing wanting the bullpen as well. I'm going to say no, just because unfortunately injuries happen, and typically, if you're ever going to get kind of your perfect roster the way you sort of envisioned it, it happens at the beginning of the season when players are more healthy than not. Whereas now you're playing things. Crazy things could happen. You could roll an ankle. And so, no, I'm going to say, unfortunately, the Dodgers roster, the complete Dodgers roster that maybe everybody was sort of envisioning heading into opening day, will not be seen this year. That's not to say that they can't have a very good team still, though.
Yeah. Like if you look at, like I just pulled it up, like what their opening day roster versus righties would have been like, Mookie, Ohtani, Freddie, Will Smith, Muncy, Hayward, Teoscar, or Chris Taylor in left, Outman, Gavin Lux at short. And that's the 9-hitter. But we've seen Gavin Lux bat as high as I think 6 this year. So it's tough. It's tough times. Tough times, Matt. Yeah, I don't think we'll see it. Guys, I know my word of the day is it's tough. It's tough out here. We hop on. Shout out to almost 1,250 in here. Appreciate you guys a ton. I will be hitting the books. I'll be looking and seeing what's out there, like what they can do expectations wise, and tempering them big time. Because the more we talk about it, the more I'm resigning to the fact that they could be a team that just focuses on pitching and goes that route without the bat. And they might get maybe one with some upside and maybe fill a platoon. And I know I saw people talking about how they're tired of the platoons in there, but that's the route they're going, and they're going to bank on Mookie Betts coming back.
Well, that, and hey, what if, I think I could be sold on if they go pitching and get a legitimate pitcher, not, hey, we got some depth guys who are going to eat innings for us, because that's not going to work. But at least one, legitimate, basically number 2, if not a number 1 starter. And then they get a bench bat. You can sell me on that, because I feel like, okay, you at least added a bat to your bench. You are getting Mookie Betts back. You are hopefully getting Max Muncy back.
Mm-hmm.
And so then there's, the domino effect from that. You can sell me on that plan. I could be okay with that, as long as the pitcher is the right caliber pitcher. But yeah, I mean, time will tell. Here we have another super chat from Rod. Rod, thank you. I know this is your second one tonight. He says, in fairness, the Dodgers never get a top draft pick. Yes, that is certainly fair to bring up. I think, though, that there still is a way to have more success than the Dodgers have since on the position player side, since Andrew Friedman has really taken over.
Yeah, there's just been some big whiffs. There's just been, until we see something like drafting Kendall George like at 36 this past, like in the 2023 draft. It's just, you look at the names behind them and like, how do they miss on this, or what are they looking for? And it's an odd thing. I don't know what's going on with them the last few years.
All right, so let's end it with this. I'll throw this potential this idea to you, and then we'll see what the chat has to say, and then we'll sign off. If you want to bat and you want to also address your bench in some regard, and maybe third base is also a need. Have you and I discussed my Blue Jays idea, or did I just do it with Blake?
Just Blake, hit me.
Okay. You go and get Bo Bichette, and while you're having those talks, you say, "Hey, what is Justin Turner up to these days? Does he want to come home?" He maybe fills in at third. He hasn't played a lot of third base the last couple of years. He maybe fills in a little bit there. If Muncy is back and you platoon Turner, whatever the case is, you move him to your bench at that point, then he's a David Freese type bat off your bench. Mookie goes back to second base, which I know you want.
Yeah. Anything to get back to that plan, because it's right now it's showing that Gavin Lux has no business starting games. None. We're approaching Trace Thompson territory. Oh, yeah, we're approaching that.
Okay.
If you're asking me,
let's stop there on the Lux thing. We don't need to keep going any further. You Trace Thompson, that's going to bring back too many bad memories for everybody.
We got one more super chat. We got one more.
Yeah. John Bleed and Blue says, will Friedman go with what we have into the playoffs, knowing we have Ohtani and Yamamoto for 10 years, and go after Roki Sasaki to make Dodger fans happy? I mean, I don't think so. I don't think these two, like,
No,
I don't think they're necessarily connected.
I don't think that he's thinking that this last year, John, thanks for the super chat. Hopefully it's the last one. So I can, go eat some dinner. But I don't think they're connected. I pray that they're not connected. Like if that's what he's looking at, that this is who they've got, go ahead and roll that way. It can't be, right? Like it can't be. This can't be the team that Andrew Friedman's saying can go win in the post. It really cannot be. This is not the starting rotation that he's confident in, that he's used to building. That's a strength for his teams. It cannot be. That's where my thing lies.
Yeah, I don't see it. I also don't think I think, yes, you'll have some fans that are happy that they signed Roki Sasaki, but I don't think anybody is going to say, oh, it's okay, they flamed out in the NLDS again, but they signed Roki Sasaki. We'll get him next year. Like I don't think those two are necessarily connected.
Yeah, that's what I was just gonna ask and see what the chat would say. Like everybody watching, like I hope everybody can respond to this. Would you be okay if there's another immediate first round exit if the Dodgers went ahead and were able to lock in Roki Sasaki? Just for another, we got another guy, another supposed ace.
Well, Blake is reminding you of Lance Lynn being the ace last year.
Oh, were you still whining about Nick Nastrini, Blake?
Okay. That's probably it for tonight, unless we got a final question. Yeah, I mean, TQT says Roki Sasaki is hurt, which I have seen some.
Yeah, I've seen that.
Signs of that as well, or news of that as well. So, I mean, I don't think that means the Dodgers aren't going to have interest in signing him.
Absolutely. Long play.
But yeah, I don't think adding Roki during the offseason would help take the sting of another October flame out. But hey, we'll see. The good news is there's still 3 weeks until the trade deadline. There's several months until the postseason starts. So the Dodgers have an opportunity to, 1, get healthy, to 2, make some of the upgrades to their roster that Scott and I discussed throughout tonight's show. We want to appreciate everybody joining in with us tonight. We got up to, I think, 1,300 at one point. So just as a reminder, if you are on YouTube, please be sure to hit the like button on this video, subscribe to the channel, ring the notification bell. That way you'll be always up to date on our live shows and different daily videos that we put out throughout the week. You won't miss any of those, and player interviews once the team is back home. This was another great one. I was filling in for Jeff. We should be back to Jeff as the normal host later this week. I think our next live show will be Friday, unless there's something else that comes up during the week. But thank you once again. As a reminder, follow us everywhere, social media, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube at DodgerBlue1958. Keep reading us, DodgerBlue.com. We put out a bunch of content for you guys every single day. Scott is part of a great staff that we have. So yeah, that's going to do it for tonight. I know it was a rough game, but hey, I had a lot of fun with everybody. Scott, I'm sure I'll speak for your behalf. The chat was on fire tonight. We appreciated everyone being in here. We will see you next time.